this year in July after 37 years in the Coast Guard. So thank you for sharing it out with us. We look forward to the opportunities that will bring in the future. The good news is we're not going very far. Congratulations to Barbara. As I retire and play a lot of golf, she'll be restarting her career as a nurse manager at Aventura Hospital beginning on Monday. So congratulations. I'm only half thinking about the golf part. She's going to make me go back to work. But it's really something. But in any case, we look forward to that. So we also think it's really fitting that we should end our Coast Guard career here after 37 years. In the same place that I started my career, as an ensign aboard the Coast Guard Covering Office in 1989 in Miami Beach. So it means a lot to us to be able to finish our career here in South Florida among so many friends, family, and shipmates that are with us here. Many here tonight. It's great to see so many familiar faces. In addition to that, our Coast Guard family tradition continues. Our niece, Rory McPherson, is Lieutenant JG aboard one of the fast response cutters in Miami Beach. So it's really, a big round of applause. She'll be here tonight, but she gets on the way tomorrow. So somebody's got to stand and watch, right? So before continuing, I'd like to recognize Patricia and Oscar. Patricia, what a wonderful voice. Thank you for that rendition. Oscar for the invitation. And of course, the color guard. Sea Cadet Color Guard for tonight. Thank you very much. Big round of applause. I know I'm going to leave somebody out, but there's a couple people that I do have to also just recognize. One is Sergeant Major Joe Hassan and his wife Courtney from U.S. Southern Command. My former Command Sergeant Major continues to retirement by a few months, but Courtney continues to work as a civilian at U.S. Southern Command. My Southern Command shipmates, welcome. We've got some true great friends of the Coast Guard here in Fred and Darla Brodsky, along with a few others. I want to thank you all. Thanks for what you do to support your Coast Guard. Thanks for what you do to support the Navy League. And thank you for supporting this community, most importantly, these kids. There's one other group I want to recognize. If you are a military spouse, would you please rise? I gotta admit, often underappreciated and sometimes overlooked. But thank you. Thank you for what you do to maintain the home front, take care of the family, and support your members in uniform. Thank you so much. So I'd also like to share some thoughts on service and leadership with our many sea cadets that are with us a little bit later in the program. But right now, what I'd like to do is share with all of you a few stories to illustrate my time as the Director of Operations at U.S. Southern Command over the past year or so. As many of you are probably aware, earlier this year, the administration published the new National Security Strategy that put an emphasis on security and stability right here in the Western Hemisphere. And just last night, the Department of War issued its new National Defense Strategy, which also prioritizes achieving peace through strength in the Western Hemisphere. And I can tell you those strategies have been on full display in execution within the U.S. Southern Command over the past year. And this is only possible because we have the most capable, most lethal, most technologically advanced joint force in our nation's history. U.S. Southern Command, everything we do, every mission we execute, is done by the Joint Force, comprised of our active duty, reserve, and civilian members of the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, the National Guard, and yes, the Space Force. Let me give you just a few examples. In August of 2025, the President directed the Department of War to lead efforts to stem the flow of illegal narcotics that threaten the safety and security of the homeland. Since then, we've seen the largest deployment of forces into the Southcom AOR in our history. And as we gather here tonight to celebrate, remember there are nearly 17,000 members of the Joint Force at sea, in the air, and forward deployed throughout the Southcom AOR. That is nearly 3 times the normal footprint. There are more than a dozen U.S. Navy and Coast Guard ships at sea, including a carrier strike group and an amphibious ready group. There are more than about 4,000 U.S. Marines attached to the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, embarked and ready to respond to crisis in a moment's notice. And there are dozens of fighter aircraft, along with manned and unmanned intelligence and reconnaissance aircraft, patrolling the skies of U.S. Southern Command. I ask you all to keep them in your thoughts and prayers tonight as they stand to watch. So since August, the Joint Force has successfully interdicted more than 262 metric tons of illegal narcotics bound for the U.S. under Operation Southern Spirit. And while I can't get into many of the details here, I can assure you that the level of certainty attained through a broad range of intelligence methods to enable those interdictions is like nothing that I've ever seen in my career. And we see that as making a difference in disrupting and degrading transnational criminal organizations to make us all safer. But that's not all. When Hurricane Melissa was bearing down on Jamaica in late October, our Joint Force responded with incredible agility and timeliness. Within 24 hours of the request that we received from the government of Jamaica, we had heavy lift CH-47 helicopters from Joint Task Force Bravo based in Honduras on the ground in Jamaica to lend assistance and help save lives. Another 24 hours later, the USS San Antonio from the Iwo Jima RMU was offshore Kingston, Jamaica to provide additional CH-53 heavy lift and U.S. Marines ashore. All told, U.S. forces transported more than 600,000 pounds of food and water, over 175,000 pounds of equipment, and more than 450 people, including medical and search and rescue teams. But that's not all. During this same period of time, we deployed 50 U.S. Marines from the 22nd Unit to reinforce security at the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, following a growing threat to their security posed by Haitian gangs. The team quickly deployed from Puerto Rico aboard a U.S. Marine Corps C-130 to reinforce Marines that were already there in Haiti. Within days of arrival, they increased the security posture there and mitigated the threat, so the U.S. Embassy could continue its mission to help facilitate a long-term political solution that will help bring the end of gang violence and return to normal life. But that's not all. As tensions with Venezuela rose over the past few months, U.S. Southern Command was directed to turn our attention to the dark fleet of oil tankers that illegally transport oil in violation of U.S. sanctions throughout the Caribbean, and in fact, across the globe. In early December, the U.S. Coast Guard successfully interdicted the first dark ship fleet in the Caribbean, motor vessel Skipper, with the support of the Department of War Forces. In the dark of night, an elite Coast Guard Maritime Security and Response team fast broke onto the pitching deck of the massive tanker from helicopters to detain the crew and seize the vessel without incident. It is one of the starkest examples of the power projection of the Joint Force that I have ever seen. The U.S. Coast Guard Assault Force deployed from a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier aboard U.S. Navy helicopters, backed up by U.S. Marines from the RMU, under the watchful eye of an armed Air Force unmanned NQ-9. The only thing that was missing was the U.S. Army. Sorry, Sergeant. No doubt, those Army folks were providing support in the rear and also intelligence that led to those interdictions. So since the first interdiction, the Coast Guard and Marines have interdicted at least 6 additional Dark Fleet ships while preventing others from transiting the area freely. But that's not all. In the early morning hours of January 3rd, we witnessed one of the most meticulously planned and precisely executed military operations in Southcom history, if not all military history. At precisely 2:01 a.m., a U.S. Special Operations Assault Force successfully infiltrated a heavily fortified Venezuelan military fort in Caracas, Venezuela, to extricate the illegitimate nominal president Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia in support of a Department of Justice warrant so he could face charges in the U.S. for drug smuggling. The team touched down aboard Special Operations Force helicopters within 1 minute of the planned operation, having safely navigated bad weather and difficult terrain as they made their way ashore in the middle of the night. The assault force met heavy small arms fire upon landing from Maduro's personal security detail, but they were quickly neutralized, and the team rapidly located and secured Maduro and his wife in their residence before they could escape or barricade themselves. Once securing the site, the team was quickly recovered by the same forces that infiltrated them, and they were soon back aboard a ship at sea, with Maduro and his wife in custody of the FBI. This top-secret operation, now unclassified and disclosed publicly as Operation Absolute Resolve, was truly one of the most incredibly successful military operations I have ever been associated with. All told, there were more than a dozen ships and more than 150 aircraft that supported this operation, from as far away as Dyess Air Force Base in Abilene, Texas, and the Green Mountain Boys of the Vermont Air National Guard. Most notably, there was no loss of U.S. life or significant damage to U.S. equipment. Just some of the aircraft supporting the operation included the MQ-9 Reaper drones, FA-18s launched off the USS Ford, F-35s, and the B-1 bomber. Months of planning, preparation, and rehearsals went into this operation. Not one small detail was overlooked or ignored. The courageous young men and women that executed this mission are some of the most professional and patriotic people I have ever met. I just wish I could tell you their names, but I can't, and I won't. As I look back and reflect on the past few months, along with my 37 years of service in the Coast Guard, I could not be more proud or more impressed with how far we've come as a joint force. I can tell you that when a much younger ensign, Brendan McPherson, was going over the gunwale to conduct a drug boarding somewhere in the Caribbean 37 years ago, I was alone and afraid, armed with nothing more than a 6-shooter and a motorcycle helmet. Today, our joint force leverages exquisite intelligence and unique partnerships while employing high-tech tools such as night vision goggles, stealth aircraft, and laser-guided munitions to accomplish the mission. As I said, we've come a long way. Finally, I'd like to speak directly to the Sea Cadets and the young people in the room tonight. First, thank you for your interest in the military and for being a part of the Sea Cadets. As good as our tools and technologies are today, nothing is more powerful in protecting our national security interests than our people. The safety and security of our nation is literally in your hands. I will soon be retired, but it's you and your generation that will determine the future of our nation. I know many of you are thinking about what your future looks like. I know that can be both exciting and terrifying at the same time. And I encourage you to trust your faith and your family as you contemplate your future. One of the most rewarding things I get to do as a senior officer in the Coast Guard is to mentor other members of the Coast Guard as they consider options for their future, whether that's in the Coast Guard or beyond. So let me leave you with a few thoughts that I typically like to share with the people I mentor. And as you consider options for serving the U.S. Armed Forces in the future yourselves, I would encourage each one of you to do the following. First, find something that you are passionate about and choose a service or a career choice that feeds that passion. Pursue a career choice that you think you will really enjoy. If you enjoy what you are doing, you will perform well and you will be rewarded for it. Pursue a career choice that you are good at. Don't follow a career path simply because someone tells you to, or because it might lead to future opportunities. We call that ticket punching in the service. Future opportunities are earned, not handed out. And finally, join the Coast Guard. Some may seem biased. I can tell you from my own experience that no other service will provide greater authority and accountability earlier in your career than the U.S. Coast Guard. Think about it. What other service will let you command a $15 to $20 million ship, leading 20 to 30 of your shipmates, interdicting drugs in the middle of the night somewhere in the Caribbean at the age of 20 or 23? Think about it. Great opportunity.
Reckless and bad.
So to our
Sorry.
Work hard, take care of one another, and have fun doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for supporting our students. God bless the United States Armed Forces. God bless you.